Tuesdays on research of the CURA100 AI Podcast. We are a super group of clinicians working from New York, from Las Vegas, from also we work from Florida, and we have a couple of institutions, not for profits, also in the United States, in the Caribbean, Dominican Republic, and in Madrid. We're very happy to be today with you guys. It's going to be an amazing presentations today, as always. I see beautiful faces that already presented. I know Evelyn Fonseca, she presented on the AI coaching and human coaching, all the experience that we're going to have when we only can go to the human psychotherapies of coaching, we can go to the AI coaching. So she taught us everything we need to know. And also Evelyn Mateo, Fonseca and Mateo, she presented on the psychology of vertigo. And we have our newest intern. She was approved yesterday from la Universidad de las Américas, University of las Americas, Alison Pozo Cervantes from Ecuador. She is here also. And the technology guy from the Dominican Foundation of Psychoanalysis and Meta Poetry is right there, Lefari Pina. So we're ready to present our next and wonderful topic on ADHD couple AI assessment. You know, everybody somehow, some moment have an issue with attentions and focus. And that create a lot of issues, sexual issues, couple issues, couple of performance and success. So today we're going to have a wonderful presentations by Kara Marie Uzun, who came from Turkey directly to New York, and she's streaming from her hometown. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Evelyn Fonseca, who is going to introduce also Kara Marie Uzun. With everybody, Evelyn Fonseca, take it from there.
Thank you, Dr. Pina. So I'm going to introduce Kara. Kara Haid is a graduate of Teachers College, Columbia University. Kara holds a master's degree in counseling psychology and education and a bachelor's degree in mass communication from Townsend State. She currently works as a mental health counselor, LP, at Hispanic Mental Health Counseling, PLLC. And as a counselor, Kara works with couples, individuals, children, and groups using a person-centered and cognitive behavior approach. Kara's other duties at Hispanic Mental Health Counseling, PLLC, include running the women's group and initiative coordinator for CURA100. Kara works under the supervision of the president and CEO, Dr. Jorge Pina, and previously she worked as a middle school counselor at the Center School and West End Secondary School in Manhattan. And Kara is recognized for her compassion, dedication, and open-mindedness. She has lived in Manhattan for the past 25 years and works remotely in Turkey. Without further ado, I am going to pass it on to Kara to present her presentation.
Thank you, Evelyn. So I'm going to be talking today about ADHD couples and the best way to support them. So let me just pull up my slides and we will get started. Okay, so this topic, coaching ADHD couples, AI assessments, and therapy. So these are the primarily the ways that we support couples if they have ADHD. We can do an assessment, they can go to a therapist, or they can do coaching. And we're going to look at all of these ways independently and then come back to it and see, well, what's the best model? Is there a best model? So the first thing that we have to do, though, is define what is ADHD. So the definition that I have is that ADHD, it's a neurodevelopmental condition affecting the brain's executive functioning, attention regulation, and impulse control systems. And it involves differences in brain chemistry. So that's the main difference between someone with ADHD and somebody else, right? Particularly in how the dopamine and the other neurotransmitters function in areas responsible for focus and attention. Now, what I've noticed is that although the DSM has its own criteria for ADHD, when somebody is assessing an adult for it, they tend to follow Russell Barkley. He's a researcher. He has a book. It was a groundbreaking book on ADHD many, many years ago. And what Russell and the other authors of that book said was that, well, this is what we've found is the best way to assess somebody with adult ADHD. First, we say, okay, there's 4 criteria that can diagnose the inattentive side of adult ADHD with 95% accuracy or better. And he's looking at somebody and saying, okay, do they fail to pay attention to detail? Are they having difficulty organizing their tasks? Are they losing things that are necessary for those tasks to be completed? And are they easily distracted? And then he looks at the hyperactivity. So the hyperactivity diagnostic for adults with ADHD. And again, it's Russell Barkley, Kevin Murphy, and Mary Ellen Fisher. And they wrote the book, the groundbreaking book that talked about, how do you diagnose this? So they also say, but also look at, are they restless? Can they do activities quietly? People with ADHD have trouble doing things quietly. Do they talk too much, right? Is there excessive talking? And are they able to take turns? So they look at those 2 components. And he says with this second component, the hyperactivity, these 4 criteria can accurately identify hyperactive ADHD symptoms in 90%. So again, a higher rate, more than half, right, of the adult cases. Now, just for the sake of being thorough, I did include in my presentation what the DSM says. It's very long, and it's actually more relevant if you are trying to assess a child. Many researchers will say, okay, that's what the DSM says, and it is relevant. It's scientifically backed up. But for the sake of my presentation, we're going to follow what Russell Barkley said, but I'm going to just quickly go through the DSM criteria. It talks about persistent pattern of inattention and or hyperactivity with functioning or development as characterized by 1 and or 2, the inattention. In the inattention section, you have to have 6 or more of the following symptoms. And I'm just going to quickly try to go through that. Do they fail to give close attention to details? Does this person have difficulty sustaining attention? Do they not seem to be listening when they're spoken to? Do they not follow through on instructions? And this can be in different settings. When you're assessing an individual, you can't just check one place. You have to check, okay, they don't follow the instructions. Is it happening at home? Is it happening at work? Is it happening at school? Whatever their different environments are, you have to check all the environments. So the DSM is very comprehensive saying all this. They also say, does the person have difficulty organizing tasks? Do they avoid, dislike, or are they reluctant to engage in tasks that require sustained mental effort? They don't usually like to do things that have multiple steps. And they also talk about, again, what we saw from Russell Barkley, do they lose things a lot? All right. Are they easily distracted? Are they forgetful? So that was for the inattentive. Now, the other section, and again, I'm going through this fast because this is not really what I want to focus on. We're going to follow Russell Barkley's criteria. But the DSM then says the hyperactivity, again, they're following 6 components. Russell Barkley researcher follows 4 for each. So the DSM then says, do they fidget? Do they leave their seat? See, again, this more presents for a child. That's why we're going to kind of skip through it. Are they running and climbing in situations when they should be seated? Are they unable to play or engage in leisure activities? And are they on the go? Do they blurt out? Do they talk excessively? We saw that in Russell's comparison. And do they blurt out things? So those are the main components. Are they inattentive, or are they hyperactive? We're going to now skip through this so that we can get to this. But we're going to focus on today is not how it presents in a child. We're focusing on ADHD adults and relationships. So now you've seen that there are many components. The reason that I wanted to show that is there are many components to take into consideration when you're trying to work with couples. So you not only have each person's personality, you have this whole list of criteria that you have to have on your radar. So as we start now, ADHD and adult relationships. So the impact, what's the impact of ADHD on a couple? Here is why this is so important to know. So ADHD can cause invisible strains on relationships. Partners can experience chronic misunderstandings. They don't always get the meaning of something. There are hurt feelings. There can be resentment when symptoms like forgetfulness, they are disorganized, or their impulsivity. This can be interpreted as laziness, as selfishness, or lack of love. Their partner might even say, it doesn't seem like you love me. You're not helping with things. So we're going to go more into that. All right, the second part of this impact, it creates repetitive and frustrating cycles. So many couples find themselves stuck in loops of conflict. Their partner feels like a parent or a manager. So many times they'll say, there's an uneven amount of chores or workload. And the partner with ADD, they might feel criticized, they might feel nagged, they might feel micromanaged or inadequate. And these cycles can damage that person's self-esteem, and it really can hurt the emotional intimacy with the couple. Another impact, so understanding ADD can save relationships. Does the other partner really understand all of the symptoms of ADD? So when both partners understand how ADD shows up, their dynamic can shift from blaming to collaboration. And with the proper tools, whether it's coaching, whether it's communicating strategies, or even psychoeducational. So going back to understanding what this looks like, that can help the couple strengthen their connection and create a more balanced relationship. All right. So ADD, again, going to these impacts, it affects emotional regulation and intimacy. People with ADD, they might struggle with emotional impulsivity, and that can lead to intense arguments or shutdowns, right? These moments can feel like emotional whiplash. Sometimes the other partner will feel like they're on an emotional roller coaster. So you want your partner to feel emotionally safe, and with ADD, that closeness, it can be harder to maintain. ADD, it's going to also impact your parenting and the co-parenting. If one or both partners have ADD, managing schedules, setting routines, and maintaining consistent discipline can become difficult. So understanding how ADD affects parenting roles, it's key to reducing chaos and conflict in the family system. Again, that goes back to this parent and child dynamic between the partners. Is one partner having to do all of the scheduling? Is one partner having to do, more of the workload, not only with the chores, but with the kids, bringing them to their activities, or, helping with homework? But the good thing is that with support, the couples can thrive. With awareness, with treatment, and the right strategies, couples affected by ADD, they can not only survive, but flourish. Many ADD-affected relationships, they're filled with passion, with creativity, and deep empathy once the friction is addressed. All right, so now we're going to talk about how ADHD affects romantic relationships. That's really why we're here. ADHD, it doesn't just impact work or school, it deeply influences emotional connection, how we talk to each other, so the communication, and even the relationship roles. Here's how. First, there's inconsistent attention and presence. ADD often causes inconsistent focus. This person's distracted. At the beginning of the relationship, they might show up as hyper-focused. I've also heard that described as love bombing. You might know that term, right? So it's like everything is about that person that they're interested in at the moment. But over time, when the newness wears off, the attention is going to shift, and that can lead your non-ADHD partner to feel ignored, unimportant, or rejected, especially if they don't understand the symptoms of ADHD. So example, you might hear a woman saying to her partner, you used to be so attentive, what happened? Again, maybe this person needs some psychoeducation to understand more about the symptoms. 2, there's forgetfulness and disorganization, missing dates, forgotten chores, or trouble following through on plans. And it might seem like irresponsibility, but often symptoms of executive function present a lot of challenges for someone with ADD. And this creates resentment and a sense of imbalance in the shared responsibilities. There's also emotional dysregulation. So people with ADHD, they may feel emotions more intensely. and they have difficulty calming down. And that can lead to sudden mood shifts, explosive arguments, the stonewalling, the withdrawals, right? This can happen during a conflict. Small disagreements can spiral quickly, leaving both partners confused. And again, going back to one of the criteria, the impulsivity, impulsive comments, risky decisions, or abrupt behaviors that can strain, especially when the non-ADHD partner feels blindsided or disrespected. And this can also affect financial stability, right? If you're impulsive and you're charging things on a credit card, or you're making purchases that that weren't planned for, it's gonna create lack of distrust. Now, again, I keep going back to this, the shifting roles and the parent-child dynamic, because you definitely see that a lot in your cases. The non-ADHD partner often becomes the manager or the reminder system in the relationship. This goes back to the executive functioning, which can be a struggle for someone with ADD. The imbalance, it can lead to a parent-child dynamic where one partner feels burdened and the other partner, then they feel infantilized or criticized. And what does that mean? Well, they're the ones that they're not remembering to make the schedule, or they're sitting back and they're waiting for their partner to do everything. There's low self-esteem and shame as a product of all of this. Many individuals with ADHD, they carry internalized shame from a lifetime of being told they're too much, they're lazy, or they're inattentive. And in the romantic relationships, this can manifest as defensiveness, right? Or they avoid being intimate, or there's a fear of being not enough. So what helps? Again, as I've mentioned throughout this, education. So the psychoeducation about ADHD for both partners, clear communication tools and conflict resolution tools. And that's the same in any good couple anyways. You need to know conflict resolution. As far as the executive functioning, something that can help if you both have a shared calendar for things that you're doing as a family, things that you're doing as a couple, checklists, having a routine. A routine is very helpful for someone with ADHD. Coaching or counseling that can support accountability, to have someone that this person can check in with. And of course, empathy and validation. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. The role of coaching in ADD couples, coaching, it's a future-focused support system that helps couples manage the challenges of ADHD in their relationship. And unlike therapy, which is going to explore the past patterns or emotional healing, ADHD coaching, it emphasizes your skills, the systems, and the accountability in daily life. So that was going back to what I said about a coach is going to check in with you. Hey, so-and-so, did you set up your calendar for the week? Did you make your checklist today? What coaching brings to ADD couples, one, there's structure and there's strategy. ADHD coaching provides the tools to organize responsibilities, to manage the time. There's tracking, there's goals. Couples are learning to divide their tasks. They're using their calendars, they're using reminders. For example, let's create a Sunday reset checklist together to prep for the week. Two, improve communication. Coaches are going to help the couples identify unhelpful communication loops. For example, no more nagging, defensive, let's stop that, let's not criticize. The partners can practice clear, non-blaming language so they can do some role playing, what's working better for them. Let's try using a weekly couples huddle. So in other words, let's do a check-in to talk about what's working and what's not. Communication is key. And of course, accountability without shame. Many partners with ADHD, they feel guilty or inadequate about falling short. Coaches foster, it's a non-judgmental space where they can track things and they're not moralized. And this helps break that parent-child dynamic that you do see in ADHD relationships. Instead of reminding me, can we use shared reminders and have a Friday check-in? And that way, this helps the ADHD partner to not feel so criticized and to not feel nagged. All right, so restoring the balance in the relationship. Coaching helps both partners feel seen, heard, and supported. When both partners contribute to change, there's emotional intimacy and teamwork grows. Why? They both feel invested in this. Bridging therapy in real life. Coaching can complement therapy by helping the clients apply emotional insights to their daily habits and routines. For example, therapy might explore why the emotional regulation happens, but coaching is going to give that person the strategies, the tools, and those timeouts. So, what are some of the outcomes of coaching for ADD couples? Fewer misunderstandings, there's less resentment, clear expectations. Okay, this is what we're going to do because they have a plan. There's more emotional safety and there is more teamwork. Now we're going to talk about the role of assessment. So first we looked at coaching. So how can assessments help if we're working with a couple where someone has ADHD? Well, assessments can play a critical role in helping couples understand how ADHD is affecting their relationship. It can provide clarity, language, and structure guiding both the clinician and the couple. We can see everything mapped out when we do these assessments. Why assessments matter. Okay, just like I said, clarifying the presence and the impact of ADHD. Now we have data, now we have numbers. Many couples enter therapy without knowing that one or both partners have ADHD. I found that very shocking. ADHD, it can be misinterpreted as laziness, as a lack of interest, or even emotional avoidance. Standardized assessments like the ASRS, the Barkley Adult ADHD Rating Scale, or Brown ADD scales, they can help identify clinically significant symptoms, so things that are really going to affect that relationship. This isn't about you not caring, it's how your brain processes attention, memory, and follow through. All right, so 2, identifying relationship-specific challenges. That's another thing the assessments are going to do. Relationship satisfaction scales, communication patterns. Oh, this is what we're doing. It's easier when you see it in front of you. You can go through it. Emotional regulation or intimacy inventories, another good thing. These help isolate where ADHD is affecting the relationship, such as, okay, like we talked about the chores, the division of labor, who's doing more work, emotional connection, what's the conflict style of each person, what does the sexual intimacy look like? Well, the person that feels like they're not connecting enough, it might be obvious to them, but it might not be so obvious to that person with ADHD. Let's look at how impulsivity or emotional flooding shows up in your arguments. So that's one way to present these assessments to the clients. And again, we're tracking this progress over time. So if you use an assessment, you can do a pre-test, you can do a post-test, you can compare the data. Assessments provide a baseline to track improvement. Periodic reassessment can measure, is there decreased conflict? What about cooperation? Is it getting better? What about the executive functioning and improved emotional regulation? For example, let's revisit your scores after 6 sessions to see what's shifted. Yeah, you can compare. Are these strategies working or are they not? 4, tailoring the intervention assessment results help clinicians. When you see what's wrong, it's easier to come up with a good plan. And I think if you do an assessment, it's very clear as to where the strengths and weaknesses are. You can develop personalized strategies. You can choose the right coaching tools or the right therapeutic intervention, whether it's coaching or it's a therapist doing the treatment plan. So decide whether to integrate medication support, behavior tools, or communication training. 5, enhancing insight and empathy. When both partners see assessment results, it reduces blame and increases mutual understanding. You're both on the same page. You present this data, there's no avoiding it. Partners often feel validated. The non-ADHD partner feels seen for carrying the mental load, and the ADHD partner feels understood rather than being criticized. We're not the problem. ADHD is the challenge. We're learning to manage this together. So it's teamwork. It takes the blame off of the ADHD person. All right, so here are some of the common tools that are used in ADHD couples assessment. I'll just go through these quickly. The ASRS, it's a screening tool. Barkley, again, named after that researcher, Barkley, the Adults ADHD rating scale, ADHD Partner Survey, and that identifies relationship impacts. The Gottman Relationship Checkup, I'm a fan of that. emotional regulation questionnaire, and the communication partners questionnaire, and that's going to explore the conflict styles. All right, so we talked about coaching, we talked about assessments. Let's look at AI. How can AI help couples with ADD and ADHD? It offers innovative, personalized, and accessible tools that significantly support couples navigating the unique challenges of ADHD in their relationship. From reminders to relationship coaching, AI helps bridge gaps in executive function, communication, and emotional connection. One, there's executive function support. ADHD often it affects the planning time, the planning, the time management, and the task initiation, all these executive functioning things. And this can assist both partners by reducing the cognitive load. So with AI, we can have the smart reminders for appointments, for routines, or medication. You can have an AI calendar. You can have habit tracking apps that use machine learning to adapt to individual routines. Two, there's improved communication, AI-powered relationship apps that can analyze the tone, the frequency, and word usage to identify communication breakdowns. There's conversation prompts, and we can help partners recognize patterns of criticism, avoidance, or escalation. We've been interrupting each other a lot. Let's try this communication tool tonight. So there's things that are outside of the two of you that can help you, that can assist you. And there's on-demand education and coaching. Couples can access AI-powered chatbots or virtual coaches that offer psychoeducation about ADHD and the relationship dynamics, strategies for managing conflict and emotional regulation. And there's personalized coaching tips that are based on your inputs and your self-reports. So lots of things that AI can offer help with. All right, so there's also mood and behavior tracking, AI-based mental health tools like Reflecti, Mood Path, or Bearable. They can track emotional states over time. They can alert couples to patterns or offer coping strategies. It looks like your stress levels spike every Thursday. Let's talk about what's going on that day. So great if you can use these things. They're easy to access. You can go to anytime you want, have it on your phone. And personalized interventions. AI can synthesize data from self-reports, wearable devices, and schedules to offer customized relationship goals and check-ins. AI-generated conflict de-escalation scripts and recommendations for therapy topics or couple exercises. The app noticed we've been doing well in chores, but still argue during transitions. Let's focus there next week. So you're just plugging in information and AI is going to synthesize everything and then tell you where to go next. All right, what are the cautions in ethical use though? While AI is powerful, it's important to ensure privacy and data protection. And you want to use AI tools to support but not replace human connection and professional guidance. Balance AI use with in-person check-ins, therapy, and shared time. All right, now we're going to come back to all of us, therapists. So how can therapy help couples with ADD? Therapy is going to provide that structured, supportive, and non-judgmental space for couples to explore how ADD affects their relationship and to build new skills for connection, communication, and collaboration. With the right approach, therapy can help both partners move from conflict and confusion to clarity and compassion. So first, therapy is going to help foster understanding and empathy. Many couples don't initially realize that ADHD symptoms, not their flaws, are driving the conflict. Therapy educates both partners about how ADHD impacts attention, memory, emotions, and behavior. The ADHD partner is going to feel validated, and the non-ADHD partner is going to feel seen and supported. So it's really a win-win. We're not enemies. Again, it's taking away the blame, and they're doing this together. The challenge is learning to do it as a team. Two, you're breaking unhelpful patterns. ADHD often leads to rigid roles in the relationships, the overfunctioning partner and the inconsistent one. Therapy is going to help the couples identify patterns and replace them with healthier dynamics. Couples will learn to shift from blame to teamwork. They'll do things together. They'll come up with a plan, and that's going to reduce resentment and emotional distancing. Building emotional regulation skills. Emotional dysregulation, it's common with ADHD. There's outbursts, there's shutdowns, there's mood swings, and these can destabilize the relationship. So therapy is going to teach mindfulness, distress tolerance, and the communication tools to regulate emotions during conflict. When you start to feel flooded, use this agreed upon phrase to take a 20-minute break and return to the issue calmly. Improving communication. So therapy is also going to give couples tools to use I statements instead of blaming each other. They're going to be listening. They're not going to be defensive, and they're going to stay present and focused during conversations. Therapists can introduce a script or structured dialogue, right? We can use Gottman. Let's practice a speaker listener technique to help you both feel heard without interruption. And of course, rebuilding that intimacy and trust. ADHD can erode emotional and physical intimacy through miscues, forgetfulness, or inconsistent behavior. Therapy is going to provide that space to rebuild the connection, to set realistic expectations, and to create shared rituals of intimacy and repair. What's one small way that you can reconnect this week without pressure or perfection? And that sounds like something from Gottman. So these are the things that you can do, when you're working with your therapist. All right, we're also going to talk now about the integration with coaching and assessment. So therapy, it often works in tandem with coaching. Coaching is going to be reinforcing. You're going to get that check-in. You're going to be holding that person accountable. Did you set that calendar? Did you make the reminder? The assessment results, that's going to guide that plan. And of course, with medication management, sometimes, that's going to give you a little bit more of a boost. That can help with certain things, but not with everything. So a comprehensive plan is going to integrate all of this, the insight, the action, and the tools for daily success. Outcomes of therapy for ADD couples. There's going to be less blame, more teamwork. They're doing it together. Improved communication. You'll learn that with a therapist. They'll give you the tools. Better emotional regulation. You'll learn some mindfulness. There's going to be increased intimacy and connection, and a shared language and a strategy for managing the ADHD together. Now I have a chart that, again, we'll go through this a little bit, not too slow. It's a comparison. What are the advantages and the disadvantages of doing these things separately? Okay, so let's look at therapy. Well, therapy is going to address all the emotional wounds, the communication and trust, and it's going to build insight and empathy. But a disadvantage, it's lacking some of these practical tools. It's going to take a little bit longer. It's not going to address a daily structure directly. Then we have the coaching. Well, coaching can provide that structure. But what's its disadvantage? Well, there's limited emotional depth. So you really need them both. And then, of course, you have assessments. Assessments, you're going to see exactly what's happening with that data. You'll have clarity. You'll have symptom insight. And what's the disadvantage? Well, you definitely can't use the assessment as a standalone treatment. You need a plan. You need somebody to interpret it. And then let's add in the AI tools. What's the advantage? 24/7. These things are at your fingertips whenever you want, and they're cost effective. But a disadvantage, that it's going to lack that emotional depth. It cannot provide human empathy or repair, and it's certainly not suitable for crisis. All right, so key takeaways. Each modality offers a unique value, but none should be the sole approach, especially for the couples that are facing complex challenges related to ADHD. The most effective support comes from a blended model that's going to integrate therapy, that's going to give you the emotional healing and the relationship repair, the coaching, that's going to give you that structure, those the practical tools, the planning, and those systems. Assessments, very, very specific. You're going to have clarity. You'll get the diagnosis. There'll be some insight, a path to take when you see those results. And then your AI tools, that's going to be the daily support that's cost effective and 24/7 with some habit reinforcement. Suppose you're using an app. And here are my references, a lot taken from Barkley, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And then as you can see, the rest. But that concludes my presentation on ADHD couples. And again, looking at therapy, assessments, AI, and coaching. Thank you, everyone.
All right. So there we have it. We have a masterclass today. And how can we put that together? Because that's what I saw at the end. You put it together completely on a very interesting, clear way. And how can we apply that in a clinical patients? Can you give us a clinical case probably that you have been using that is being improving somehow? And can you in the clinical space of your practice see that working, and how effective it has been when you put that things together? Because this is a very comprehensive presentations of everything that you can do to treat couple with ADHD.
Thank you, Dr. Pina. Well, there are two cases that come to mind, but one specifically, of course, from Dr. Pina that I'm working with. A couple, I'm seeing the husband, and he's getting a combination of coaching and some therapy. There's two things happening. And I've noticed that, it's progress can be slow, but we've used an assessment to see, okay, what's happening in the relationship? What are the ADHD symptoms that are really affecting your spouse and that are happening at work? What are the symptoms that are strongest? So we use that assessment to see, okay, these are the symptoms, because as you know from that criteria, there's a long list of things in inattention and hyperactivity. What are the ones that are affecting him? Well, it was with scheduling and also with intimacy with his spouse. So that's from the assessment. We look at these things, and also self-report. From me, he's getting the empathy. So I'm able to say, okay, I understand where you're coming from. I see how this is affecting you, how hard it is. I'm not blaming him. We look at the assessment to have clarity on which of the symptoms are strongest, and then we come up with a treatment plan. And then I shift to coaching, because then it becomes, okay, so your symptoms, you're having trouble managing your time. You're having trouble with your executives. Basically, the executive skills is where he's having a time, at least with work and even with home, making time for his wife. The intimacy, I'm not going to focus on that, but that's also an issue. But we take the assessment, look at the criteria, look at the symptoms that are affected, and then we switch to, well, now I become your accountability. I'm going to check in with you each week as I work with him. Did you set your schedule for all of your calls for work? Did you carve out time to have date night with your wife? Okay, your wife doesn't feel like you're doing things with the family. You guys aren't having enough one-on-one time. Did you carve out time looking at all? Because he works on the weekend. This spouse has events on the weekend. So sometimes he's just so focused on work, there's events on the weekend, and then this doesn't happen. But when we get into the accountability and I put on my coach hat, I can say, did you block out time for your spouse? You plugged in all of the events for work. We're not forgetting anything. And AI comes in because he can also have things on his phone that remind him. He can get some tools. He can't reach out to me all the time. So he's getting everything. He gets the assessments from me. He's getting emotional, he's getting the empathy from me. If we were doing the couples, and he's getting that from his other therapist, the couples therapist, but he's getting everything that he needs rather than just working with a therapist or just working with a coach, because you need both. You get the structure from the coaching, you get the emotional advice from the therapy.
How persistent and pervasive is the ADHD in couple, and is it a neurodivergent? Is it a neurological component that will tell us that this is going to be a long process of healing, therapy, coaching, and medication?
I would say that it's going to be an individual, case by case, because just like the autism spectrum with ADHD, people have different things going on. It is in the DSM, it's under the neurodevelopmental section, so it's, neurodivergent, but some people have more trouble with their executive skills. If you're looking at, well, we're talking about adults, but a child might be more fidgety. My client has more trouble, maybe he's restless, but his presenting problems are that, oh God, I can't handle all the different tasks at work. I'm not, my sex drive has gone down. I'm distracted during sex. So another person, maybe they just need medicine because they just need to be in class. They're an adult. They're just having trouble staying focused, and they lack the inattention. They don't have these other components of, low sexual desire. So yeah, it's really case by case. It's very prevalent though, and people don't realize when they're upset with their spouse about something. Well, if you start running through the criteria, you might want to look and see if there's ADHD somewhere. Maybe not, but if four of those criteria from either the inattention or the hyperactivity come up, then you might want to then go see somebody that specializes in ADHD, because that could be what's happening. Not so much that your spouse has lost interest or that, they're distracted. It could just be something else at play.
Excellent. Remember, we're streaming live in YouTube. Today it's CURA100 AI Global Podcast. We have from New York City, Brooklyn, Rosario and Rail. We also have Evelyn Mateo in the studio. She's from Yonkers. And we have Alessandra Nicole Pozo Cervantes from Florida. And from Chicago. I don't know if she's in Chicago, in Buffalo, in Niagara, or she's on a plane. Evelyn Fonseca. So we're happy. This is our super group, CURA100 AI Global. And it comes because of the Dominica Foundation of Metapoetry and Psychoanalysis, the Madrid presentations of the European Academy, and the Movimiento Internacional Metapoesía in New York and Florida. So, very interesting, very interesting. So the fact that it's a developmental kind of and a neurodivergent kind of, and it's a component of neurophysiology. Do we need to be dealing with this as a way of being in life, as a permanent condition? Is there any hope that it will go away? Will this improve, or you're gonna continue having the support, or you will need more resources or less resources as you progress?
It is something that I don't think people realized. As you look at the literature, kids were diagnosed and then you didn't hear anything about it. I mean, many 20 years ago, it was all about, your child has ADHD, but then there was a gap where it was like, okay, but what's happening to those kids? They're now adults. It doesn't go away. But the great thing is, though, with the right tools, depending on, again, case by case, maybe you need a coach that can teach you to use your digital camera, your digital calendar, or you can go on medication that will help with the focus or the hyperactivity. So depending on the degree, is it more inattention? Is it more hyperactivity? You have support so that it becomes more manageable. And that's the thing. It's not going to go away, but as you get support, it's definitely livable. You can lead a healthy, fulfilled life. You just have to have the right tools, whether it's your therapist, if you're a couple, or using some AI tools so that you can do scheduling.
Okay, so very, very, very much important. So, what will be your recommendations to the couple who is not having the symptoms of ADHD, who is living with a person with ADHD? And then I will give a chance to Rosaura Van Rail, to Evelyn Mateo, I will go to Alison Pozo, and then I'm going to go to Evelyn Fonseca. So, what can you say about that?
I would start with first psychoeducation, and I mean a really good explanation, because my client was just taking screenshots of things on social media and giving it to his spouse. Well, no, you need something that's backed by research. Even if it's something that you got off of Instagram, that's not going to work. Your spouse needs to take this serious. I think that the more that you communicate to your spouse and they really understand every symptom, what this looks like, then they'll lend themselves more to empathy. But with somebody just saying, this is what I have, this is how I feel, it's not my fault, they can't be shifting blame. Start with psychoeducation. You do it together. You sit down with your partner. You guys could even go to, maybe you even have your therapist take a session where it's all psychoeducation to make sure they understand not only what the symptoms are, but okay, but what does this look like in a person? You're saying the criteria is fidgeting, losing things, they're not scheduling. How would that look like how does that present in real life? How do you translate that criteria? And then you come up with a plan together so that the other person is more invested in it. It becomes more like we're doing this together. So I would start with that psychoeducation and coming up with a plan together so that the other person can also see the benefits for them.
Okay, what about if all of a sudden your pathology, your symptomatology, everything that is happening in your brain, and all of a sudden you have to understand me, my lack of attention, my lack of sexuality, because now I'm a victim now. I mean, like, how can you deal with that? How can the other couple will deal with that? I mean, it's like, now you have to see me, you have to take me as it is. In the meantime, I have needs that are not satisfied. How do you go about with the how do you know how you made both understand where they are, and what are the expectations and the sacrifices even that the one who has the symptom, who presents his symptom as an obstacle, but also you have to see me understand, how do you navigate that?
That's a very good question. So that's kind of what's going on now in this situation. And there isn't a quick fix for that. So what we're doing is, well, we're starting with what is the most important thing that's happening. It sounds like it's the low for this person, it's low desire at home. And then it's also, at work, it's having to manage all these executive functioning skills, the reports and calls. So for home, what we're starting with is actually my client had something that I think he came up either with the therapist. They're putting in a jar different ideas for date night. And my advice was, one, we're going to start with the psychoeducation. We haven't done that yet. We haven't had a chance to all sit down, but explain very comprehensively to your partner all of the symptoms. Maybe you haven't done it thorough enough. Like, these are all the symptoms in ADHD, and I have inattention and lack of focus, and this is how it's presenting in me at home. And then, okay, first, instead of just going right from 0 to 100, to increase that sexual desire, we have suggested to my partner, to the client's partner, well, let's try different things. Start with a different location. We've also talked about with this person, because of inattention, okay, so you fall asleep on the sofa when this is a time that you could be intimate with your partner. So I have told the client, you need to get away from all the distractions, turn the TV off. If you know that you only have about 2 more hours before you fall asleep, you don't go sit on the sofa and watch TV. You have to do something else that's going to keep you awake so that you can carve out that time. We are working on showing his partner more attention so that she feels that he desires her and he needs more excitement. So I have suggested to him, and on your part, you need to find different ways. And we talked about, do you want to use different sex toys? Well, he doesn't like that. Do you want to try a different location, a different place in the apartment to have sex? What can you do to shake up the venue? That makes him more interested in sex, because he has said that it feels like, they've been together a while. Of course, he's like, of course I love my spouse, but we've been together a while. It's not as exciting for me, and I'm having a hard time being focused. So, okay, to create the excitement, you try those things, the toys, a different venue. Then when you're in, if you're in the bedroom, one thing that, can help is You close the shades, you minimize all distractions. You know, whatever's in that room that's going to distract him, it's gone, whether they're in the bedroom or they're someplace else, so that he can be focused on the wife. And then on her part, so that she sees, oh, you know, he's really making an effort working towards that. Little things. Have you told your wife that she looks, you know, that she looks pretty today? Are you showing her, this is going back to Gottman, are you showing her admiration and appreciation? We had talked about, and I think he did it on his own, he sent his wife flowers. He had mentioned that she didn't feel included when he had events on the weekend. And of course, the weekend would be when most of us are spending time with our spouses. So I said, you know, what is keeping you from making your wife feel like she can, you know, like she is wanted at these events on the weekends? Show your wife off. Bring her to these events for work, introduce her to the people that you work with that are important to you, make her feel included. So all of these things, again, not a quick fix, but let's increase, you know, what do they both need? He needs the excitement, she needs to feel desired. It's not going to go from 0 to 100, but bit by bit, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, we have to see the trajectory. It seems like he's actually said he feels like things are moving in the right direction, but it's slow. So, you know, that's our plan.
Excellent. Very good. It's a couple that we have from Italy with 2 kids, an architect and an engineer. Nobody will know who they are. Okay. Rosaura, what do you say about these presentations? Then I'm gonna go to Evelyn Mateo. She's can speak, and Allison's, and then Evelyn Fonseca. Rosaura.
Okay, good morning to everyone. Kara, your ability to draw from personal experience certainly add value and context to the presentation, and makes you become more an expert in whatever you are presented. But I have one simple question that maybe you answered already. What specific incremental improvements have been reported after integrating AI and coaching in the routines? You know, anything that was reported as an improvement.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to flip to the work side, because that was definitely something that would concern anybody. I want to keep my job. And this client had, you know, received a promotion. And then, of course, like all of us, the more you rise up, you've got more stuff. So incremental improvement would be the coaching I have on my coaching hat, and we talked about, well, what tools are going to help you? So one thing that, although, you know, he knew about, but he really wasn't utilizing, was a digital calendar, because he has a lot of work calls and he has to be on top of calling clients. So how can you be more efficient? I think he has set a timer, like for reminders to call certain clients. He's utilizing his calendar more. And the biggest difference was because the work life was bleeding into the home life. Okay, he's now even mapping out, or he's supposed to be mapping out, you know, let's see this week what he says, but he's mapping out time for work, those weekend events, the activities that he has to do, but also time for his wife and the family. You know, like they're going to take the child to a birthday. I'm going to have a date night, whether it's during the week. So incremental changes, you know, slowly using that calendar and seeing how is that changing the relationship? How is it, you know, how is that affecting us? And then, you know, as we add more things. So he started with using the calendar. Now we've moved on to keep using the calendar, but now we're going to go on to trying, you know, to focus a little bit more on the relationship and changing things up that way. So it's like, once he progresses with one thing, he got down after several weeks, he was in a routine of using a calendar every week, the beginning of the week. I check in with him. Okay, you've got that. Let's add something else to the mix. Now we're going to focus on, you know, each week you're going to make sure that you have time planned with your spouse. On the weekend, your daughter wants to see you guys, you know, doing something, not just the TV. Okay, let's add that to the mix. So see that he's got the tool under his belt. It becomes a habit. Then we add another thing that he can do to fix it.
All right. Evelyn Mateo, any questions? If not, we're gonna go to
Hi.
all right. Okay.
Hi.
Hi, Evelyn.
Yes, it's very interesting the topic because let me silence something. Yes, 1 second. Yes. Very interesting the topic. I'm working, with celebration people. It's a lot of people that has in relationship and they looking people engagement. And I attended many people with ADHD, autistic, the spectrum. Some family have to deal with this topic and they need to work in education, in educating. And this is very important because the family need to educate the starting like a teenager in the topic about the relationship. Do not let only go to the adult because this is the problem because they go to the teenager, go and do not explain. When you go to the teenager, because this is not like a sickness, you need to explain your child, okay, you have this, like Tara said, the doctor said, this is not something that is your fault, but you need to deal with that. This is very educated topic, and this is something that can be very useful in the platform for educating the family, for very not only for today, something that a article can be shared not only in English, also in Spanish, that Tara can share for the platform, for the Dominican platform, sharing in Spanish because will be very useful. That's all.
Thank you. Yes, the more information that gets out, especially in school, it's a shame when we see kids that are pegged as being, inattentive, but not with ADHD. They're fidgety, they can't sit down. And I remember as a kid, before it was at least on the radar where I was from, kids that would get into trouble because the teacher thought, he doesn't sit still, he's moving around, he's not at his desk, this kid doesn't pay attention. But it was really back in the day before the diagnosis of ADD or ADHD was more common. And those kids had this, I'm sure that some of these kids had ADHD, but it wasn't yet a prevalent diagnosis. So they were just deemed as a kid that didn't pay attention in school. And if only we had known, they could have been supported instead of made out to be the bad guy. So yeah, so that's, just something, it is important to educate everybody.
All right, Alison, Nicole.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to give my comment in English.
Okay. Okay.
I read it. Okay. Congratulations, Kara. The presentation is very clear and complete to me. It explains well what ADHD is, how it affects not only the individual, but also romantic relationship. I like it. But it doesn't just stay on the clinical side, but also offer practical solutions like coaching, therapy, and even use the artificial tools. Plus, the approach helps people to understand that many relationship issues and issues aren't due to a lack of interest or effort, but rather how the ADHD brain works. I'm sorry for my...
All right.
Thank
Excellent.
you, Alison. Thank you very much.
All right. So, Fonseca, Evelyn?
Yeah, thank you. Same thing. Congratulations. I think it was great. I think something that was on my mind throughout the presentation was something that Dr. Pina, a question he asked, or I guess something he brought up about, how between the couples and not only, I guess how, bringing this issue up and the understanding kind of how not only the person with ADHD is feeling, but also how the person who doesn't have ADHD, how they're feeling. I think I was thinking, there's like that fine line of the person with ADHD, they finally feel understood, and then there can be that fine line where it crosses into maybe they're turning, like they're using that to victimize themselves a little too much. So that's kind of what I was thinking. And I think that was great how you brought up this clinical example of that couple that you're with. And it really showed, gave me that clear picture of kind of how that works, I guess, and how you would how you might come across those issues in therapy and then how you would solve them. So I think that was great. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn.
Excellent. So this is it. This is it for today. I want to thank you, our presenter of today, Kara Marie Uzun, Rosario Valrail, that's been here for us, Evelyn Fonseca, Emily Mateo, and also Nicole Pozo Cervantes. This is Dr. Pina. We are CURA100 AI Global Podcast. Thank you. See you every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Bye-bye.
All right.
Adios. Ciao.